You are listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud, conversations about trauma and healing from two women who are doing the work.
Hi, everyone. This is Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. I have a question for you. Did you listen to last week? Because if you didn't, you definitely want to go listen to last week before you listen to this week. I mean, it's your choice. You could do it out of order, but this week's going to make more sense to you if you go hear the story. Because last week, Sher, you held with me an experience that I had walking one morning in the park and being approached by a man. And you actually, in real time, heard the full story for the first time.
Yeah.
So we didn't know how things were going to go.
Yeah.
And we just spent a few minutes processing.
Yeah.
That we had, there's no way we could have known that I was going to have a part show up that was scared to share the story.
Yeah.
And minimizing that it wasn't that big of a deal. And yeah, my tears right now feel really tender because the work that we did through that, there's a sense now that she's kind of excited that we get to share this part now.
Yeah.
She's excited because this is going to sound woo-woo. It's almost like she's saying, other little girls and women need to know this.
So true. And I love her voice. Love that we get to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is so important, because other girls and women share the same story, very similar stories. And we get to offer good care in ways that make a difference and in ways that matter. I'd like to just give a little review about where we were last week, Kandace, and I'll just share this really briefly, but you shared an experience last week. You shared a story with our listeners that you experienced just a few days ago, where you were walking in a place that is a sweet, sweet place for you. And we were talking about how for you, this is a place of shalom. This is a place where you experience peace and rest and renewal, a place where you walk to think and ponder and pray and praise, and where you feel alive. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that being a place of shalom. And we were using this kind of Dan Allender terminology about this process of how our hearts long for shalom. And this park is a place where you experience shalom. And then you had this encounter with a man along the trail, and shalom was shattered. You experienced something from him that was awry and amiss, and you knew it in your body, and you didn't even recognize fully the dysregulation until after the experience was over. But as you went through it, your body was experiencing what your body already knew, the shattering of shalom. I just want our listeners to understand the reason why we're talking about this is because when we go through these experiences, if we do not receive care, if we allow them to go into secret places and hiding, that shame can come in and we get trapped there. And we're not able to experience shalom again. We long for shalom, so we strive to find shalom, but we really can't. But when we go back and we bring care and we tell the story, and we allow space for healing and love, open the door for the restoration of being able to enter again that place of peace and rest and feeling alive. And that's why we do this work. That's why we do this work for our own selves and our own lives. This is why we talk about it on the podcast. And this is why we're bringing this story today. So last week, we kind of left off at the point where you had told the story about what happened. And then you were about to talk about how you made the call to the police. And I'm wondering if we can pick up there now today and talk a little bit about what happened on that call and why what happened there is really important.
The initial call that I made, like I said last week, I didn't even realize until maybe, several minutes into the call that I had just been in trauma. And been in trauma means that in my body, I went very young with memory of feeling trapped. But that didn't come out for me until I told the lady who I didn't call 911. I just wanted to share this information to hopefully if there was anything off that people would know to look out. It's at a park, women and kids and. And when I got to the part that I was walking in the wooded area and I saw nobody else around, and he commented about me taking good care of my body, I just started crying, just out of the blue. All these tears just started crying. And then I started telling her I was sorry. Like I felt shocked in that moment, but I also felt a release.
Mm. I want to just add a little clarity here and reminding for our listeners that it was the man on the trail who commented on how you took good care of your body and how in that moment you had this feeling of being trapped. And then it was later as you were talking with the policewoman that when she was asking the questions, that it was at that point then that you started to feel the tears come.
Yeah, so it's interesting because even though that women did not ask me the questions that we're going to talk about that need to be asked, she did have a kindness in her voice. And just the kindness in her voice, and I wasn't feeling rushed, I think provided some safety to let that come out.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't take a whole lot for a little kid, that little kid inside me to say, "Oh, here's somebody kind that might listen to me."
Yeah.
And she did say she was sorry, that I had that experience.
Mm.
She agreed the comment about the body was not appropriate.
Yeah.
And she said, I'll share with the police officer. He'll get back to you. Before I share this part, I want to make it very clear. I'm very thankful for police officers, good police officers who are doing their jobs to help bring safety and protection and intervening. But when he called back, it was very direct and factual. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling that part of me is like, oh, he doesn't see this isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Listen, like he's just asking no curiosity, no questions, kind of cutting me off even, you know.
Mm.
And I told him the story as best as I could, but I mean I'm getting dysregulated thinking about the way he showed up with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Because it actually took me back into the trauma of the little girl who couldn't tell anyone.
Right.
And so, we hung up, and that's when I reached out to so the first lady brought kindness and I felt kind of some safety. He stirred up my FU part. I felt really angry after I talked to him, but I reached out to my sisterhood. And I mean, the care that started coming in, people that haven't even heard they heard enough of the experience. We found out that actually someone else had something kind of similar happen. And we're like just coming together. And yeah, and told another friend. You asked me how many times initially that I had told the story, and I'm going to say maybe 4 or 5 times before I shared it with you. So not a lot, actually. Just that care, and then the care that you gave me last week, if you go listen to that, has given me the clarity I need to what we really want to say in this episode.
Yeah. That how important good trauma informed care is and what a difference it makes when you were not met with people. Again, we are not here to disparage the police force in any way, but you were not met with trauma informed care until several minutes after the experience and after dealing with the police. Then you came to our sisterhood and you started to receive care, like a lot of good, lavish. what we want to talk a little bit, and I just want to pause, and I've said this to you before, but I want to say it on the recording. Like, I am so sorry that that was your experience. In that moment, you needed and you deserved and you were worthy of somebody pausing and offering a bit of care and curiosity rather than just a gathering of information. And I'm sorry that you did not get that immediately.
Yeah,
And I'm,
thank you.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm, go ahead. Sorry.
no, because what that's bringing up for me is if you're looking at me as this capable 54-year-old woman, and
Which you are.
you're and which I am, there's no shame in this, but just notice if you have any judgments towards what I could have done, what I should have done. And trust me, I have done the same thing to myself. So I'm not judging you if you do it. I'm saying notice if you have any parts that are doing that. Because what I want to say is trauma. If you don't understand trauma, I went into feeling like a trapped child. This is trauma informed understanding that when we show up that way, especially in our group, we know in that moment, oh, we have to take care of this child that's showing up.
Yeah.
Now, should a police officer understand that? Yes.
Yes.
Should teachers understand that? Yes. Should pastors and ministers understand that? Yes. Is it hard to really get educated and learn and understand? Hell no. Do it. What do you
Yeah.
have to lose?
Yes. Ugh,
Ask one of us. We'll show up. That's already a yes for me.
yeah. I wasn't sure for a second there when you said, is it hard? I thought for a second there you might say yes. And I was like, I just want to leap out of my chair when you were like, hell no. Like, this is so important. We are passionate about the fact that caregivers in our world today are in desperate need of getting educated, and there's no excuse not. It's readily available, and the world is screaming for it. And police, teachers, like, come on.
Yeah. And I want to say, so what's hard about this is understanding chronological age and actions, right? So here's what we're not saying. When people or groups show up in angry, rebellious parts,
Yeah,
there needs to be consequences.
yeah,
But if we have this understanding, how we do that and what that looks like can change. And I'm going to say in this way, there's no guarantee. Everybody has their own free will, can also influence and impact the restoration and redemptive process for the ways anger is coming out destructively.
yeah. What you're talking about here is that when we get trauma informed and we begin to understand the ways that our young stories, not only young, but the stories of our lives are written into our body and our brain. And that when we have a similar experience or an experience that our body perceives as similar, we will immediately go back into that trauma response of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. This is very well known. It's very well researched. Like, this is what the brain and body do. We cannot look at a person I'm coming back to your story that you shared last week, Kandace. You went to a very young place as you continued to walk the trail that day. You look like an adult woman. You were acting like an adult woman, but internally you were spinning. You were dysregulated, which you didn't even fully recognize until several minutes after it was completely over. But the knowledge of a care provider in that moment to have been able to just offer a bit of understanding of that would have made a huge difference in the way that you would have been able to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, even just the question, ma'am, do you feel safe right now? Are you safe right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So it causes pause, right? It causes pause because the young wounded place doesn't feel safe. But bringing my prefrontal cortex online, am I safe right now? Even that question shows awareness of what happens in a traumatized body.
Right.
Even a question of like, can you identify what you need right now?
Mm.
These are very simple questions, and they're very meaningful questions when you are being fragmented.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't know what they need, but it can open up the conversation to see what their options might be.
Yeah. Well, and it offers agency. Even if the person is not able to step forward, it does offer agency to bring voice or to state a need that, I mean, and a lot of people would be able to do that, particularly if asked.
Can I share something funny?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just thinking of after that phone call and feeling this anger, like, seriously, I am going up there today and sharing, listen, I like you guys. I support you. But I need you to understand this. And then I slowed down. I'm like, you know what, Cher? I feel like I have done that so much in my life to
Mhm.
try to get my voice heard.
Yeah.
And it has not mattered.
Yeah.
I know some people that it will matter with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, your voice matters. And you brought it to a place where you knew care would be, and you were met with very sweet, strong, good care. And boy, if you want to go in and have a chat with, let me know and I'll come. You.
Maybe I'll just passive aggressively somehow get this podcast to them.
But I also want to say, Candace, like you are in a position now where you could go directly. You could ask for a meeting with somebody who could make a difference. You could bring your story and the data of what actually happened. You could give them a suggestion of here are two questions that every officer would benefit from knowing. It's not hard. Just learn a few tools that can make a difference to people who are in this situation.
So true. Yeah, I hope we kind of, and especially if you go back and listen to one, we kind of clarified, the purpose of doing this. And this has been good for me, Cher,
Yeah.
to do this with you. And our purpose and what we're doing, we've made it clear from the beginning. It's actually for our own continued healing. So some of it's a little bit selfish, if you will. We'll call it self-care.
Processing
And
trauma out loud. Two women doing the work.
but it's twofold. If anybody wants to join us in this journey, this crazy, wild, gaining more freedom, joy, shalom, badass journey, please come join us.
Yeah, reach out, let us know because we have good resources.
Yeah.
And we know you experienced this a few days ago and you are through it. Like, yep, there are still some things that you're going to look at. There are some parts that you are going to offer care because you see them differently now. But you are not stuck in the trauma of that experience. Like, you're already free from it. And I am so glad for that.
I just had this flash up in my head. I have to tell you, I'm going back to that trail at some point. I need a little bit of space, but if that ever happens again, I am going to tase the shit out of that person when he asked me to take his picture. So
Yes.
I probably wouldn't do that, but I am thinking about if this would happen again, how can I be a little more preemptive?
Yeah. And you will be able to because you've processed this and because you're bringing care to your parts so that next time they may not feel as trapped and as young. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
Mm.
stuff.
Thank you again for bringing this story and this process. And we hope that not only has it been healing for you, which we know that it has and it is, but we want it to be meaningful to our listeners as well. And again, we encourage our listeners to reach out. We know there are many, many similar stories out there that haven't received care, and maybe it's time.
Yeah.
Kandace, thank you. And thanks for doing this journey with me. What an honor.
Yeah, my honor too, friend.
Love you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud. Make sure to check out the show notes for links to suggested resources and social media. Like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our weekly content. And if you don't mind, take a moment to rate and review us. Your feedback is extremely valuable and contributes to the success of this podcast. One last thing. If you have found this podcast helpful in any way, or if you have questions on how to take the next steps on your healing journey, please reach out to us via email at KandaceSher@gmail.com. That's KandaceSher@gmail.com. Our sound engineer is Jeremiah Jones of Auditory LLC. We welcome you to join us for more conversations soon. Take care.